Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. This week, we have not one, but two summer Nintendo releases to talk about. First, we will be chatting about Rhythm Heaven Groove, the new release in the fairly dormant rhythm game franchise. And then we will be getting the lowdown on Splatoon Raiders, this month's brand new PvE entry in the beloved multiplayer franchise. Then we're going to wrap up by briefly talking about Nintendo's DLC strategy. Joining me for all of that is Polygon's Giovanni Colantonio. Gio, I think this is the first time I've had a guest on for back-to-back episodes that wasn't from Game Informer. Where does that rank for your career accomplishments?
It's pretty high up there, man. I mean, because what have I done, right? So, it's not much. So yeah, man, this is great. I'm the biggest fan in the world of the All Things Nintendo podcast, and what an honor it is to be here with you another week. I hope your listeners don't hate me, because it would be a bummer if they're like, again, second week in a row. But who knows?
Well, big news in the world of Geo. We started off and you didn't bury the lead one bit. You said you got a new chair since the last time we recorded. Tell us about the chair. Give us the exclusive.
This is why I'm back. The last time I was sitting in this crappy gamer chair, right? One of those like $150 gamer chairs that is like built to kill you. Like eventually it's like, oh, this is a good deal. Until you fall down really hard on it, right? And my birthday is not for a little bit. It's not till like late July. But my girlfriend knew I needed an office chair and picked one up, and it came here way too early. And let me tell you, it's changing my life. She got me. She knows I'm a weird sitter. I'm the kind of person who like sits cross-legged, and I just like fidget a lot, and I get up there, right? A little bit of ADD, right? And she in doing research, discovered a chair that is built for people like me. This is not an ad, but let me be very clear. I don't even know what the name of the chair is, so I couldn't plug it if I wanted to.
Please do not give the name of the chair until they pay me to endorse the chair.
You're gonna know nothing about it. The only thing you're gonna know about it is that it's very wide. It's like a double seater chair, which is like very good for sitting cross-legged. And the best part about it is I have a cat who, anytime I get up, sits in the chair. Like my old office, would just sit, and I would have to be like, I'm so sorry, I have to kick you out, or I'll like pick you up and try to put you on my lap, but then she gets mad. Now if she sits in this chair, it's big enough that I can just sit next to her, and she just sits there, and we're good. So I'm having a renaissance. I also had a Monster energy drink before recording this because I was falling asleep from the news day, so I'm hyped up about really big chair and hyped up about a week of news.
And what a week of news it has been, Gio. We're going to start a little bit right there. I mean, we technically could wrap the episode after talking about your chair and about your career accomplishments and all things Nintendo. But I think people want a little bit more. So we're going to have to kind of, stretch for the next hour or so.
This is the B segment coming up. That was the A segment. Yeah.
we burned all of our fireworks. We blew them all at once, and now we're just gonna have to be like humana as we try to fill the next hour. Yeah. So unfortunately, the news that we're going to be talking, we're going to be kicking off this episode with, I've often said that like this is a Nintendo podcast. We focus primarily on Nintendo news, as the intro that I say every single episode indicates. But Nintendo does not exist in a vacuum. This industry has three major platform holders, and I remain adamant that without those three platform holders being strong contenders in this industry, the games landscape is not as good as it can be. Like, we need those three. I mean, at any given point, I think having three is a great thing. Like in the past, it's been Nintendo, Sony, and Sega, and then Sega went away and Xbox kind of stepped into its place, and it's been that big three ever since. And there's no way to really sugarcoat it that PlayStation and Xbox have been acting a fool lately. Like,
that's the best way to put it. Yeah.
Like that song that Ludacris put out to go along with Too Fast, Too Furious, Act a Fool. It was prophetic for the week.
It was about Xbox. Yeah.
I mean, I guess those did come out around the same time, the Fast and Furious franchise and Xbox.
They knew. They knew.
Yeah. Ludacris is proven prophetic, and here it is once again. So let's start on the Xbox side of things. kicking things off in a similarly negative fashion as how we did 2 weeks ago with Jesse Vitelli. And, we already knew that Xbox was kind of taking these big swings, and they recently used the verbiage Xbox reset, which doesn't seem to bode well because, we talked about 2 weeks ago, like the studios that were being examined for potential closure or sale at best case scenario, it seems, were Compulsion Games, who just put out the award-winning South of Midnight, Double Fine, who does the Psychonauts franchise, and a ton of other quirky little weird experimental games that, like, just they're beloved. Like, it's one of the most, like, when you look up the definition of indie darling before their acquisition by Xbox, it was Double Fine. Like, that was like the indie darlingest studio that there was. Ninja Theory, who just announced the next entry in the Hellblade series at the start of June. And then Undead Labs, which is the developer behind State of Decay. Those are the ones that were previously mentioned as potentially on the chopping block to either be closed or sold. Now it appears that Arcane Studios, which is the studio behind Deathloop and Dishonored, and is currently working on the new Marvel's Blade game, which Todd Howard just sang the praises of in a public way back in June. Apparently, they are now at risk for being shut down. And I don't want to spend too much time here because, again, this is a Nintendo podcast, but this effect this has like spider web effects, and it's going to ripple out. And Xbox announced that it was at the very least scaling back its relationship with Assembly PR, which had been doing public relations for Xbox for decades at this point. Mm-hmm. And that's a PR agency that is not owned by Xbox, but that decision led to layoffs of folks that I've worked with for several years, like that same day that report hit. And then IO Interactive just put out 007 First Light, which is one of the most successful and acclaimed games of 2026 so far, coming to Switch 2 later this year. They were working on a title called Project Fantasy. And when I was over in Copenhagen visiting IO Interactive for our 007 First Light cover story back in December, they were like they were giving us the studio tour, and they kept going like, oh, well, you can't go through there because that's where Project Fantasy is. And we're like, we can't wait to talk about that, but we can't tell you anything about it quite yet. Like, they were so excited for the direction of this game. And it turns out that Xbox was a development partner in that, and they were helping support that project. They announced they were pulling out of that, and that same day, IO Interactive put out a statement saying that it probably needs to go through layoffs now, even though they have been on this incredible run of supporting Hitman and releasing 007 First Light, which is one of my games of the year so far. So, yes, this is a Nintendo podcast, but one, this will clearly impact the entire industry in an extremely ruinous way, I think is a good word for it. And two, like I mentioned, the industry is always stronger when there are these three viable platform holders. And right now, I am worried that like at least one of these platform holders won't exist in the near future. And like, you can't go and say, hey, we're gonna give you a reason to own an Xbox. We're gonna bring back exclusives, and then close all of your studios and cancel all your partnerships for exclusive games, and then raise the price of your 6-year-old system that has been extremely unpopular. Like, that's not how supply and demand works. Like, I don't know. Like, Xbox has been doing like a lot of short-sighted, knee-jerk reactions. And if they were, examining kind of the long-term impact of this and like, holding on to studios like Arcane or Ninja Theory, like that would be the way to go forward. It reminds me of when a previous company that I've worked for laid off a bunch of people, and they're like, but we want the website to be really, really busy. We want to keep that up. And we're like, well, you laid off our news editor. So like, I don't know what you want from us. Like, that's the one person who would have kept. So it just seems like the corporate side is competing with its own goals of like, hey, we want to have exclusives. And like, if they want to just like churn out entries in franchises that don't have nearly the cachet they did like 20 years ago, then maybe Halo and Gears of War is all they need. But like, look, I think that Halo Campaign Evolved. I wrote the cover story for Game Informer for Halo Campaign Evolved. I got a behind closed doors demo of Gears of War E-Day just last month. And I think both of those games look excellent, but that's not all that a platform needs in order to survive and thrive. I mean, look at Nintendo. to bring it back to Nintendo. Ever since the Switch's release in 2017, it has almost without fail released at least one game per month, first party. And that has proven to be like a recipe for success. And Xbox could potentially pull that off, like with how many studios and IPs that it owns. And like when I interviewed Matt Booty last month, the chief content officer at Xbox, he oversees like all of the Xbox game studios. He was like, yeah, like, because I was like, hey, like, you know, it seems like maybe Xbox was overly ambitious with its acquisition sprees. And like, how do you weigh like the positives and negatives? Because like, obviously you had a great Xbox showcase. You had a lot of games that people are going to be really excited for. And like you obviously have a ton of brands and IP and studios under your umbrella. That's the good side of it. The bad side of it is you had a lot of layoffs. You've had a lot of studio closures. You had some cancellations. If you look at like Perfect Dark with the Initiative and everything. And he pivoted to be like, well, you know, we have all of these amazing IP under our umbrella, and that's really exciting. But like at this point, it seems like Xbox just seems entirely disinterested in anything beyond the bottom line in the extremely near term. So, like, I mean, I get that, like, Asha Sharma was dealt an extremely tough hand when she came into this role. Like, Xbox was in a super bad place. Like, I think that Phil Spencer had good intentions with what he was doing, but I think that history is now showing that, you know, getting rid of the reason to own an Xbox, though very consumer friendly, was not very business friendly. So like I get the need to scale back exclusivity, but like this tech bro concept of move fast and break things just doesn't work in this space. And it's just rewriting Xbox's place and their legacy within the video game industry, and in a terrible way.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is just a mess. And obviously, like, we haven't gotten the official word on like what's happening yet. So like we don't know the extent of what this is going to be, right? There's rumors that like maybe these studios are going to shut down, maybe some of them are going to get sold, you know, others are like, we don't know if Arcane's getting shut down. They're still weighing that, right? But I think like it's safe to say at this point that like whatever happens is going to be like catastrophic, right? And it kind of reminds me of like the Embracer Group moment from a couple of years ago, right? Where like
this is worse than that.
Way worse, right? But like that was the last time I can think of like a really catastrophic, like this company bought up a ton of stuff that it could not afford, and then like the bottom fell out, and it was like, actually we're closing down all this stuff that we bought. It's a shame. I mean, shame is an understatement. It's horrible, and it just kind of makes you wish that like they had never done this growth spurt that they went through in the first place, right? It like almost makes you wish like, I wish they had never bought these developers that are now going to get shut down, and that those teams that like were kind of finding success as independent studios, like I don't know, like I don't know if they would have stood a chance because the industry is so volatile. I don't know, but like if we're talking about like Double Fine being on the brink of potential closure, it's like, oh my god, I wish they had never picked them up in the first place. To me, it just kind of feels like Xbox is scaling back to what it was before like 2019. I think that maybe was when the acquisition streak happened, where it picked up like Double Fine and Ninja Theory and like all the stuff that was announced at E3, whatever year that was. It feels like they're scaling back to like this running joke era where people were like, who are like, what are even the Xbox games, right? It was like, it's Halo and Gears and Forza, and that's it. And you can feel that like we're going to go back to like, yeah, it's that and Elder Scrolls and Doom, and that's probably it, right? Which like, I don't know, maybe it is smart for business, right? Maybe it's smart for them to like go back to what they were doing, be like just a couple franchises, then have your third party do stuff. But like, figure that out before all of this. You know what I mean? Like, and once you've invested in these studios, don't like throw them to the wolves in like a whole like, we just need to reinvent ourselves, and we're going to do it at the expense of these like incredibly talented teams that could be making incredible stuff. And I guess like, to bring it back to Nintendo just a little bit, I think this is why like I am glad that Nintendo is not a company that just like goes on acquisition streaks. And I think there's always this kind of feeling of like, oh, I hope Nintendo like they should pick up Mercury Steam, or they should pick up Grezzo, right? They should just like bring all these people in-house, but they're very, very careful about it. And I think that over time is proving to be really, really smart, right? It's like, hey, we're gonna like work with these teams, and like maybe if it makes sense to bring someone in under us, and we have a place for them and we have something for them to do, like, yeah, okay, this makes sense, they'll be here. But like there's a world in which like every time someone makes a good remake, they're like, Velen Studios is a Nintendo studio now, and then like in 6 years they're like, we have all these studios and we don't know what to do with them. And they've also been very careful about, like you say, the thing about like they do a game every month, right? And like, where's Xbox or Sony being able to do this? Nintendo can do it because they scope these things out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, we're going to talk about Rhythm Heaven today, right? That is not a game that has the budget of like probably any of the Xbox games that were greenlit and released in the last couple of years, right? Like, I'm sure that is a micro budget game on like the AAA side, if we can even call it AAA, right? So I think there's a lot to like, I don't want to say praise when I talk about these companies, because like I think that like just operating correctly is like good. Like I don't want to give like too much credit for just like being normal. But yeah, I just wish more companies were careful about this stuff and like scope games appropriately, and like weren't just eating stuff up and then just like having to like ruin lives, after the fact. It's just a bad situation, and I'm terrified to find out what like the extent of this damage is, because it's going to be catastrophic.
Yeah, and according to The Verge, Xbox is holding off on its closures and layoffs until the end of its fiscal quarter, which is unfortunately next week. Yeah. So I have a bad feeling that we will have to start next week's show with some bad news. But you said you don't want to praise Nintendo for they're just kind of operating as a more ethical business. I'll praise Nintendo in one way, and that is, you could make the argument that like, okay, well, Nintendo has gone through some bad times. Like the 3DS famously got off to an extremely sluggish start. And you know what they did? Satoru Iwata, the late president of Nintendo, took and I see conflicting reports whether it was a 50% pay cut or a 75% pay cut, somewhere in between there, until he got the 3DS back on track.
That's right.
And not only that, they lowered the price and they gave early adopters a set of classic games and said, hey, thank you so much for supporting this console. We know we fell short of expectations. Like, that is how you navigate a difficult time without making it everybody else's problem. Like, Nintendo has obviously had its fair share of controversies. They've had, the game key cards, which we're going to talk about physical games in just a second here. They have that. They've had to raise the price of the Switch 2 and the Switch as well. But, they're doing it in a more measured way. Whereas, like, if you look at the Xbox and you look at the PlayStation, the amount of price increases that have happened there are absurd. Like, and I have made this point on Blue Sky, but like Microsoft put out that thing when they did their most recent price increase on the Xbox, and they're like, well, guys, the console and computer components are just out of control with how many shortages there are. So the prices have really skyrocketed. And it's like really the I think you should leave hot dog meme of we're all trying to find the person who did this, when Microsoft, the parent company of the company that is saying, hey, like, shortages, there's nothing we can do. Microsoft has invested $146 billion into AI infrastructure. So that is the leading driver of that, alongside tariffs and other international trade policies that have been put in place in recent years. So it's hard for me to feel any sympathy towards Xbox in this time. And I just hope that we can, navigate this in the most sustainable way possible. But I trust Nintendo to do that a lot more than I trust Xbox right now. Because like the only that they're moving fast and breaking things in like the tech bro sense of the word. But the things that they're breaking are public and consumer and potential development partner trust. Like they're not breaking anything good. They're breaking like terrible things. Like they're making things that, like, it's been nothing but bad stuff happening ever since this regime took over, aside from, hey, now Xbox is in all caps, and also like Game Pass is cheaper, but it doesn't have Call of Duty anymore.
Yeah, the ad they put out that was like not on Game Pass, as if that was a selling point. Like, and it feels like that's what they're trying to do, right? Is like sell all this bad news as like a feature where they're like, and this is exclusive to Xbox now, and it's like, oh, okay, that stinks. I guess that's a thing. Like when the Switch 2 got announced, I feel like there was like this huge attempt to paint Nintendo as like doing the worst consumer practices in the world, and I remember at the time feeling like, this like isn't super ideal, like this is a pricey console, like compared to other Nintendo consoles. And the game keycard stuff, I was like, I don't really get what they're doing there. It doesn't make sense to me, but like, I also get that like these are more technically capable games that like probably have trouble fitting on a cartridge. So like I can kind of get it, whatever. But like now looking at that in context of like its competitors right now, you're like, man, we had it so good for a minute, like, and even the Switch, when we look at like the Switch 2 price increase that's coming up, what in I think like August or
I think
September.
so.
I think it's like isn't it a $50 bump? Like
it's something like that, yeah.
It's like it stinks to hear that there's like a price increase, but like the Xbox has gone up like hundreds of dollars, like genuinely hundreds of dollars.
On the PlayStation, I mean, the PS5 Pro went from $700 to $900.
Yeah, and I mean the Steam machine, which just came out, like that's about $1,050 for the base model, and like Valve went on record as kind of saying in an interview like we wanted this thing to be around like $750-800. So like looking at like Nintendo, how they handled everything in retrospect, it's like, man, nothing about the situation is good. I'm not gonna again praise anybody for just like doing things adequately, but like I really do think that like they have navigated this better, and part of that has also been like they are making the console more expensive and they are putting out games consistently that will like still make it worth buying it. And that's the problem that like Xbox and PlayStation are in right now, where like Xbox especially, you are raising the price of that console by hundreds of more dollars, right? It's gonna be $800, and you're telling me that like you are going to cut half of your studios that are making the interesting games that I play. It's like, well, why would I buy it, right? If I didn't have one, what reason would you have to give me? Like, at least Nintendo can be like, there's an Ocarina of Time remake and Fire Emblem coming, like, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a reason, I guess, and like we're putting stuff on Switch Online, we're putting these classic games up there, right? We're doing all this stuff. We're releasing games at different price points so that like stuff like Rhythm Heaven, you can get a little bit cheaper. It's not going to be as much on your wallet or whatever. Those are the decisions that I think like a company like Xbox has to figure out how to make, right? You have to be like, if the hardware is going up, what is the value proposition of this console that makes up for that? Nintendo has cracked that, I think, at the moment. Xbox has not. They're just like, the price is just bigger and we're going to have less games and less studios making games. Enjoy. And also less games are on Game Pass. And it's like, if you think that's a good sales pitch, cool. But like, come on, man. Like, you got to give us something.
Yeah. And the fact that like people could be like, oh, well, Nintendo's doing all this stuff too. But yeah, like Nintendo just announced a 10% base salary raise for its employees too. So it's like, I don't think it's a coincidence that we see Nintendo take this like, hey, we're not going to lay off all of our employees after a dud that like an underperforming game came out. We're not going to be like, okay, well, yeah, that I don't know, like what's a game that they put out that didn't perform, like Star Fox Zero
or Metroid Prime 4,
well,
like,
but that was developed by Retro. I mean,
sure.
like I guess Nintendo owns Retro, right? So like,
I think they do, yeah.
They could have. I mean, if this was like EA or Xbox or PlayStation, I could imagine a world where Metroid Prime 4 doesn't sell very well and they say, well, let's close Retro, even though they've done such great work of like year over year over year. And we like strapped them with this impossible development project that was Metroid Prime 4 after the restarted development and everything. Like a normal publisher, which is unfortunate to say, would close that studio probably, or at least conduct mass layoffs. Yeah. And I'm really grateful that Nintendo doesn't. And it's probably not a coincidence that they have the number one developer in the video game industry's history, which is themselves, exclusive to a Nintendo platform, because they don't like just trend chase and push people out the door if there's like one speed bump in the road.
Yeah, this is a company that made a Famicom Detective Club game like 2 years ago. Like they're really not making stuff that is like definitely a reliable hit. But I think they like know what the audience for those games are going to be, right? And they scope accordingly. And I think that's important. And I think there's also a piece of this too. This comes up all the time where it's like there's also a little bit of labor law at play, right? Like Japanese labor law is a little bit different. So like there's some level of like they can't quite do what like Xbox does with some of its American studios. But even so, yeah, I mean, I do think that you see a company where like people actually stay and there's institutional knowledge and like games are continuing to get developed. And like, again, I don't think you get this like Switch 2 generation, which so far has been like unbelievably good. The first year of it, I think, has been like really, really strong. There have been like very few duds, right? Like people generally seem to like all these games that have come out. And I just don't think you get that if you are like a chaotic business where like every day you wake up and it's like, maybe we're getting laid off today. I don't know. Like no one can do their best work. It's not an environment that you can make games in. And I feel for all the developers who for the past month now at Xbox have had this hanging over their head, just not knowing like, what's the point? Like we're working on games right now that might not come out, right? State of Decay, like that team might just, they just debuted their trailer and they might hear in like a week, like, oh, by the way, you guys don't exist anymore and the game's not coming out. And they've been working on that game for years and years and years. Like I can't imagine. It's just, it's horrible. But I hope someone in this industry does a case study of how Nintendo is pulling it off during this time, because from an outside perspective, it seems like they've cracked something.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Maybe the internal of that is way more complicated than it seems, and I'm sure it is, but hate to see all this.
Yeah, and I will tell you that the stress of at least from my interactions, the stress of this situation is not lost on Xbox employees. I have spoken to tens of Xbox employees just, on the ground at Summer Game Fest or whatever. And there's definitely a foreboding feeling that a lot of them seem to have, nothing on the record or anything, but like you get the sense that they're like, well, I just got to hope for the best because like, that's all I can do. Hopefully, the new regime thinks I'm important. And it's really upsetting to see because a lot of them do great work.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
A lot of Xbox's woes are on the leadership, which is the case for many of the struggling like publishers and studios. And it's not the executives typically that get the consequences. It's usually the people who were told to do the thing that failed.
Yeah.
So
it makes me wonder if there's a world one day where like Microsoft sells the Xbox brand off, right? And it's like, we don't want to have Xbox anymore, but like if somebody wants to take it, go for it. I don't know how that would work because like what an expensive business that would be to just spin off. Yeah. But part of me is just like, man, maybe it would be better off, like Microsoft is just so uninvested in this stuff. And so like, we don't understand the business and we're going to blow it up because who cares? And that just like isn't sustainable.
Remember when there was speculation and Phil Spencer actually came out and said he wanted to acquire Nintendo?
Yes.
What a I mean, first of all, how unrealistic, but second of all, what a catastrophe we would be in right now if that ever came to pass. And then this new regime comes in and is like, we're weighing our options. Maybe we'll close Undead Labs. Maybe we'll close Nintendo.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like you genuinely, like if Nintendo had been bought, which to emphasize would never have happened in a million years, like it would have been laughed out of the room. But like we would be in a moment right now where it would be like, well, we're going to focus on Mario and Zelda and that's it. Like we're not going to do Rhythm Heaven. We're not going to do WarioWare or whatever. Like, why would we do those? We're going to do the couple franchises that work. And I think that's what Nintendo or what Xbox is about to have. It sounds like, so bullet dodged.
Yeah,
I suppose. But again, not really a bullet dodge because they were never aiming the gun at Nintendo. Like there was no way in which they were like gonna land a hit on them.
They were aiming the gun at Nintendo as confirmed by Phil Spencer, but they were shooting BBs at a fully armored tank.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't gonna do much.
Yeah, so I made this point. We're going to transition here just a little bit. I made this point on Blue Sky, but it feels recently like PlayStation and Xbox are competing in the bad news Olympics because every single time, like over the past few weeks, one company will come out and be like, guys, here's bad news. And then they will seemingly steal the spotlight for the entire news cycle. And then their competitor, either Xbox or PlayStation, will come in and be like, hey, we got an even worse piece of news for you. And they steal the momentum right back. And this time, in the past, we saw it with Microsoft. I think it was like PlayStation's like closed Blue Point Studios or Blue Point Games.
Yep.
And then like literally the next day, Xbox was like, well, we're raising Game Pass prices. And it's like everybody forgot about Blue Point and immediately were like, hey, Xbox, we hate you. And this time it's the other way around because it is PlayStation letting Microsoft off the hook by not only delisting and removing hundreds of movies from customers' accounts without offering refunds, but then saying, well, we just reminded everyone that you don't own your digital content, so what better time to announce that we're going all digital starting in 2028? So, like, you know, with the acknowledgement that we have controversies with Nintendo's game key cards not actually being like real physical versions of games, that feels tame in comparison to these moves by Xbox and PlayStation. Where are you at with this announcement that PlayStation made, Gio?
Yeah, so no discs, right? That's the news. 2028, they're going to stop producing discs. It's bad. Like, and here's the thing. When I woke up I went through a journey because when I woke up this morning, I kind of like, I always try to approach things with like a fair amount of nuance and then like arrive at where I'm going to arrive at it. And at first I was like, okay, like this is bad, but I'm like, I don't buy physical games anymore. Like and part of that is like, during the COVID pandemic, right? When like I couldn't go out to a store to buy a game, I just was like, well, I'm just going to compromise and buy some stuff digitally. And then I kind of broke the collector's habit and was like, you know what? I actually don't mind, you know, like I have less stuff I have to deal with. I have a very small apartment. Maybe this is okay.
There's convenience aspect to it.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, and so I had this moment this morning where I was like, well, I guess it makes sense because like having broken the spell, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's fine. You know, like maybe it's good to not have a bunch of plastic around. I don't know. Like and like, you know, they've said they're stopping discs. I don't think they've said that they're going to stop like selling cases, you know, with like a code in them or something, which is dumb, but like whatever, if you want a case for them thing. So that was like my first thought. But as the day kind of went on and I was kind of like, you know, trying to like make cases against an argument, it's just like, there's no way you slice it in which it's actually good or beneficial to gaming for this to happen. And there are a couple of reasons why. And I think the main ones are like, one, like it's just not good to not give people choice of where they can buy things, right? And if you are telling people you're only going to be able to buy things in the PlayStation store from now on, that only works if PlayStation is like a very trustworthy company with like a great history of like, well, we're not going to screw you over. But they announced this the same day that they announced that the PS3 and PlayStation Vita shops are getting shut down. So it's like, hey, just a reminder, everything's ephemeral and these shops can go down at any moment. Also, we're no longer going to let you buy games physically, so you only have to buy them from these shops that we have just told you will one day no longer exist. That was bizarre. Like the timing of those two things was bizarre. Also, you know, to me, I think the reasons that this is bad are obvious, right? Like we all know why this is bad for like preservation, right? We all know why this is bad for like PlayStation's recently been apparently testing out dynamic pricing where they like push different prices to people. And you can see how that could become a huge problem if it's like, oh, I can only buy games digitally on the storefront that decides what price things are for me based on my situation and region. The thing that is bizarre to me is like, why announce this at the moment they're announcing this at? And I know this is like a like side conversation, right? Like all this stuff is bad, but like, why are you announcing this just out of the blue instead of like alongside a console? Right? Like what is the point of announcing this? And I'm sure there's a business reason that it has to be kind of put out there, but like, why aren't you revealing your new console and like showing that it doesn't have a disk drive and saying, for context, we're going to stop doing discs because this doesn't have a disk drive. There's a lot of rumors about like what the PS6 is going to be right now. Grain of salt with everything, right? There's some rumors that like it might be a Switch-like handheld, right? It might be a handheld form factor. And if that's the case, and you reveal that thing, and you show like, you can't put a disc, you can't put a CD in it, it's a handheld, you at least have a moment where people can go like, well, obviously they're going to stop making discs because this thing can't run discs. But they just like, for no reason, just like set up this unforced error of like, no more discs, you know? And then like, by the time the console actually comes out, right, like now everyone's just going to have this like sour taste in their mouth about it. And if it, you know, like, if there's a perfectly reasonable explanation of like, well, yeah, we're not doing discs because we can't put it in this console, no one's going to have like sympathy for that anymore. Whereas I think if you had like eased people into the idea and been like, here's a form factor that you have really wanted for PlayStation, and in order to do that, we just can't really do business as usual. I think you at least get a little more understanding of it. So to me, just like dropping this out of the blue on the same day you're announcing the closure of your shops is just like a nonsense way to reveal this. Just like total nonsense. And just built to go down the worst way possible. And I just don't know, like, both Xbox and Sony, this has been the problem in this month of horror, is like they have handled these announcements the worst that you could possibly handle them, right? Like having Xbox announce the layoffs like after showing a bunch of games and then turning around a month later and being like, by the way, some of these aren't going to come out. Sorry, we actually shut down the studios. Like,
they even
telling
like
people
they even
don't trust
said
us.
that, like, there was even like that report. I don't know if it was them saying it or if it was somebody. I think it might have been Steven Totillo saying that, like, yeah, they only let the Senua trailer go out because they were hoping it would attract potential buyers. And it's like, come on, guys, like,
yeah, crazy,
it's just scummy.
So it's just like, why would you trust anybody? And I think like that's the thing. Like, there is a world in which Sony announces this in a way that's like, hey, we understand that this is like a move that's not ideal and it is going to make people angry. Here's the context for why we're doing it. Like that's just how it is. That's like how our hardware is moving. We're going to do whatever we can to try and like ease that gap. We're going to release games the cases still so you can buy them and have a physical thing. But like, this is the reality of the system. There is a way you can handle that announcement where I think people are still very angry and very upset, rightfully, because we don't own anything in games anymore. And it's all like buying a license that can be revoked. But just like no tactics to how no bedside manner to how this stuff is announced. And that's like bizarre to me. I mean, like really, really bizarre that like nobody is doing that. It's just bizarre. And yeah, it bums me out. Again, even as someone who doesn't buy physical games anymore, I'm like, I don't buy them, but like if one day a game comes out that's like $100, I want to have the option to go to a store and like buy it used and spend less money on it. And the fact that I won't have that for PlayStation games, I mean, like that makes you seriously consider, like, do I want to buy PlayStation? Right? Like if I'm choosing between like 3 consoles that are going to have the same games, because third-party support is great on Switch now. I don't know, man. Like that might be a factor. It's not like there's that many first-party PlayStation games. There's like 2 a year. That's all you're missing. Weird move. How do you feel about it? Are you on the like panic train about this?
My big thing is that, like, we are going to have to rely on digital only storefronts for any kind of sales going forward, right? Right now, they're like, if you really want a game for cheap, you can go to a brick and mortar store. Sometimes you'll find a game in clearance, or you'll be able to go and buy a game that's used or something like that. This, like, I mean, I go 100% digital at this point. It started off with like 3DS and then it moved to like Switch. And I was like, okay, well, if I have a portable system, I don't want to have to carry around a bunch of games.
Exactly.
And then it extended to Xbox and PlayStation pretty shortly after that. But like, I want there to be that competition, right? Like,
yes,
right now, if a Amazon has a sale of games, they can price it whatever they want. And then PlayStation might look at that and be like, oh, well, they're selling this game for $20. We should probably put it for $20 on our digital storefront so we get the money directly. There's the competition that benefits the consumer. Yeah. They're effectively eliminating the competition, and they're going, you know what? We're just going to set the price at whatever we want. Right now, digital sales are usually pretty good, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're always going to be that way. Thankfully, Steam has defied that and always had pretty good deals and sales, and it's worked out really well for them. But like, I don't know, like it doesn't necessarily always go that way. Like, to look at Nintendo in a negative way, they very traditionally do not put their first party games on sale. I think right now, like the big sale on their website right now is like, hey, you can get The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for $42. And it's like, wow, what an incredible discount on this almost 10-year-old game.
So crazy. Yeah. I think there's a classic like hard drive article, if I remember, that was like, Nintendo weighing if it can financially survive by selling Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze for $20 less, and like I think about that all the time. It's really bizarre. It's the not being able to like get it on discount thing, I think is a bummer. The other thing that really bums me out is like I have friends who like, they game a lot and like they don't necessarily make a lot of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like one thing that I've always been able to do is like, I buy a couple physical games here and there, right, for things I really like. And like I can lend that to people. And I've done that a lot of times where somebody comes over and they're over my house and they look like at the things and they're like, "Oh, can I borrow Donkey Kong? You like, I haven't played this yet. Can I play this?" "Yeah, man, go ahead, take it. Take the card. Go for it. Go do it." And like I know that there is still like game share on Switch, right? You can like lend out the virtual game cards. PlayStation has like a sort of digital game sharing program, if I'm remembering right. But it just feels like we're moving towards this like, you buy the game and it's on your system and that's it, and we don't want you to give it to a friend. We really want them to buy everyone to buy everything for a fixed price that maybe is more money being offered to you if dynamic pricing, ends up working out that way. I don't know. And it's just, I get that the industry's in like a tough place, right? And I get that like there are a lot of factors that are coming together, especially like, the RAM crisis is like a serious problem, right? And like the way that is like screwing up the price of consoles and like everything. I totally get it. And there is like a necessity to like change a little bit. I just don't think any of these decisions feel like the right decisions. I don't know. It's strange. I also just like, I'm curious to see if this gets backtracked on the physical games thing. I don't think it will necessarily, because again, I think that like their next console's probably locked. Like if they're not making discs, that means it doesn't have a disc drive. Like that's it, right?
I could see them doing like a USB attachment, almost like Xbox used to have with the HD DVD, like where you could plug in a USB and like, fine, we heard you. We're going to put out this peripheral. Like you have to buy it for like $100 and then you can plug it in and play physical games. Like that's the only way I see them backtracking.
Yeah, and they have backtracked before. I think a lot of people forget like the PS3 and Vita shops are closing. They tried to do that in 2021. They tried to do that 5 years ago and people were outraged and they backtracked. They were like, "Hey, we heard you. Like nobody wants this. So we're going to leave them up." And we got another 5 years out of them, which I think was like great. And I think I've always been like, that's not permanent. We know that those shops are going to shut down at some point. There's no video game online shop that lasts forever, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're like, I think the encouraging thing is it feels like we're moving to a point where like these storefronts are a little more like universal and meant to be like carried through generations. Like it's not like there's a new PlayStation store necessarily every generation now. And our best hope is that like we just have this awkward era of figuring it out and these storefronts are going to close, but these new storefronts are going to be like the permanent ones for as long as this company is around. But yeah, I mean, you can't trust that, and until Sony gives us like a reason to trust that it is going to handle this well, like, I mean, I think it's very fair to come at this with like a lot of scrutiny and be worried about like, are other companies going to follow suit? Like Project Helix isn't going to have a disk drive. Like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. Microsoft will probably be smart enough to not outright say we're going to stop producing discs, though.
Well, I saw there was a report, and we do have to move on after this. Yeah. I saw that there was a report that apparently Xbox is testing a process where you can put a disc in and digitize your game. So, I mean, maybe that's a route that PlayStation takes as well, if they are trying to do that, like that form factor of like a handheld or like a hybrid style console of like kind of like the Switch, where it's like, yeah, well, you can buy it at the store and then digitize it so that way you can take it on the go without having to have the disc in the actual system. That would make sense, and I think that would be like a happy like medium that people could latch onto. But like, that feels convoluted to like what the approach that they're trying to take right now.
Whew. What event? What event session to start this?
I originally planned this to be about 20 minutes. We've gone 45 minutes almost.
Whoops.
So we have one more news thing that I want to get to before we talk about our main talkers. But first, a reminder that this show is brought to you by the fine folks who support me on Patreon. Without them, the show literally would not exist. You get access to the community Discord for as little as $3 a month. We're over there talking Nintendo and doing an occasional community night every once in a while. You can join that for $3 a month. There are also in $5 and $10 tiers that get you early and ad-free episodes, plus shout-outs at the end of every show. Also recently restarted All Things Gamers, which is a semi-regular extra podcast that goes out to $10 patrons whenever I have something I'd like to talk about. You can join the team that makes this show possible by heading to patreon.com and searching for Brian Shea or All Things Nintendo. Also, on the topic of this whole thing, this PlayStation Xbox debacle, if you want to read my uncensored, just very, very raw thoughts on it, it might be the most hard in the paint op-ed I've ever written. By the time this episode goes live, it should be up on GameInformer.com. So go check that out if you feel so inclined. If the last 45 minutes were not enough for you. So, Gio, we have just one Nintendo news story that I want to talk about this week, and it's a throwback to a few weeks ago, because back in May, Nintendo legend Takashi Tezuka announced his retirement from his role as executive officer. And now we know that while he is stepping down from that role, he is going to stay at Nintendo in a different role called production producer, which feels like a kind of a redundant name, but okay.
Yeah, wait a minute. That's a weird title.
So here's a quote from Tezuka, which was a shareholder Q&A that was held this week. He said, quote, "On this occasion, I'll be stepping down upon the expiration of my term. Looking back on 42 years, I felt that was such enjoyable work. We used to make our own handmade playthings that weren't available in toy stores. Now it's on a large scale, and there's the joy of creating with many people. There were new technologies like 3D, stereoscopic vision, and motion controls, which were fun as an engineer. The work at Nintendo is about developing and delivering products that bring joy to people around the world and being able to think about it as a company and flexibly create them. I truly feel that working for this company was the right choice." Well, yeah, obviously you had an incredible career.
Yeah.
Going forward, I will continue to be involved as a production producer. So I know that, like, I've certainly noticed, and I'm sure you have as well, that the roles of director and producer mean very different things at Japanese studios as they do in Western studios. But what could production producer possibly mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. I wonder if it's just like a high level version of a producer where it's like not so much working on an individual game level and instead working on like the pipeline of production period. I don't know. Production producer is so strange. It kind of makes it sound like you're like on top of the process that's there in some way, like overseeing how the management of managing is handled, in a way. I don't know. It's very there's like an old bit from The Office where it's like
assistant regional manager and assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. That's the only thing I could think is that like it is a sort of like I am producing the producers in some way.
Who watches the Watchmen?
Yeah, who produces the producers, man? Someone needs to be organizing them. Either that or like they're using production as a more like blanket term because like he's gonna work on like the movie side or like the product side where like if they're getting more into like merch, or toys or things like that, maybe that's something where it's a more like all-encompassing title that's not just about games producing but is about like, hey, we're gonna do shorts like the Pikmin animated short that we did at some point, and we just need somebody who is like a pinch hitter to come in and just kind of like be the producer on this thing because we need somebody. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's like a sort of free roaming producer who is like working in a multimedia capacity, or maybe it's just a redundant title, but they needed to give him something, that sounded new and exciting and senior. I don't know. Production producer. Cool.
I mean, it could also be a translation problem because
could, yeah.
I got that over at Nintendo Life, and they did mention that the translation was done by a machine translator. So it could be a mistranslation or something along those lines, but I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm happy that Takashi Tezuka is staying at Nintendo in any capacity. He has just had an incredible career. He has worked on the Mario movies, so he was a creative consultant for the Mario movies, and alongside his longtime partner in crime, Shigeru Miyamoto. So it would be a good fit if no matter what it is, whether it is we're going to bring him in because this game needs some creative guidance, or we are going to bring him in because we want to make this movie very good and loyal to the Nintendo properties. Like maybe he's working with Sony on the Zelda movie right now. Who knows?
Yeah, that's my guess, but we'll see.
He knows a thing or two about the Zelda franchise.
Just a couple, a few. He knows the timeline.
he just, I'm sure he does. Yep. Actually, I bet if I asked Takashi Tezuka about the timeline, he would be like, "We have a timeline."
Where was it? You'd be like, "It was in a book," and he'd be like, "What? What?
They make books about this thing?" Like,
isn't it just a game?
He is that. I mean, honestly, like he's not stupid, obviously, but he is very, very humble, and he has that childlike wonder about him when you talk to him. He is just he seems pure of heart in the way that Naoto Oshima last week, when he said Santa Claus is the most famous character in the world, like that. I feel like I pictured the way Takashi Tezuka just carries himself.
I hope so. I want to believe.
He's a very fun interview if you ever have a chance to chat with him. But Gio, we're going to take our first break of this episode, and when we get back, we're going to be talking a Rhythm Heaven Groove review and a Splatoon Raiders preview. We will be right back. We are back, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, we actually do have some Nintendo-specific topics to talk about. Not just going to be Xbox and PlayStation this whole episode. And those topics, we already talked about Takashi Tezuka. We're going to be talking about two new games coming to, well, one of them's coming to Switch 1, the other one's coming to Switch 2. It's Rhythm Heaven Groove and Splatoon Raiders. Both hit this month. Gio, you have reviewed one of them and you are previewing another one of them, and we're going to talk about both of them in this segment. First up is Rhythm Heaven Groove. We talked about it very briefly last week, giving my hands-on preview. Now we're going to get your hands-on review. Gio, how are you feeling about Rhythm Heaven Groove?
Spoiler, it's Rhythm Heaven. it's just Rhythm Heaven. If you haven't played a Rhythm Heaven game, I think that like it will be a delight. Right. I think this is, for people who don't know, right, this is a pretty niche series that like, it's funny because there was so much talk like last week, I guess, about like Star Fox, and like, we haven't had a Star Fox game in so long. It's actually been longer since we had a Rhythm Heaven game, but it doesn't feel as long, which is strange. But if you haven't played it, music mini games, right? You have to press a button on beat to the music. Very simple, very goofy, very fun, all that stuff. It's a delightful series. It's like good precision based like music. It's very easy to understand. It has these goofy cartoons, and I think all of that holds up in Rhythm Heaven Groove. And if you just like the series and just want like more of that, it's great. It's great for that. It's just like delivers everything that you want, but in a really robust package that I think takes a couple of experimental swings that make it kind of fun. So you kind of have the baseline mode where you play a bunch of mini games, and then like every 5 mini games they get remixed into like a mix where it combines all 5 of them into one song, and that's super fun, right? Nothing there is super new or original. I will say, like, if you've played a Rhythm Heaven game, you've kind of played this before as many times as you've played a Rhythm Heaven game. There's a couple of really, really genuinely funny mini games. There's a couple that are really clever. There's some that involve 2 button controls that are like, ooh, that's interesting. Like this changes things up. There's some that have weird rhythms where you're catching a Frisbee on the 7th beat, I think we talked about last week. That stuff is all great, but yeah, it's kind of the same, and that's fine. The more interesting stuff, I think, is there are a couple of like side modes that I think are really fun. One is there's this sort of RPG dungeon crawling mode that I think we talked about last week called Beat Spell, where you kind of like fight enemies and do spells on beat. Great, really good. Also kind of like not a fully developed thing. It feels a little bit more like a 3DS like Street Pass mini game sometimes, where it's like couple, you get a bunch of levels of this, and then like it teases kind of like, what if this was a roguelike that had a little more substance to it? And like you get that at the very end, but it's not quite as much like as I think I would want it to be. But like, cool experiment. They could go deeper with it. Great. Similarly, some really, really great ideas for multiplayer minigames in there. It has a kind of co-op and versus suite, 30 games in total, but really kind of 10 with 3 variations of each. Some of them are really, really clever. There's a great one that's a co-op game where like it's like a tennis RPG where you're like a bunch of tennis players and like lines of enemies like kind of come at you, and you all have to like hit the ball on the rhythm to like knock them back, almost like Breakout as an RPG in like a weird way. It's super, super clever. Again, you do the 3 levels of it in like 10 minutes and it's done, but great idea. There's a couple of really fun versus modes in there. I think, did we talk about the cake minigame last time? I think.
I love that.
Great minigame. There's another really good one that's like, there's a grid and each player is on like a different side of this grid, and there's a thing in the center, and you have to like shoot your way to the center, but you have to like hit the button on a specific beat like very precisely to like shoot the blocks in the center to get in, and it like becomes this really tense, like, cool. All these are great ideas. Again, they're not super fleshed out or as fleshed out as they could be because they're kind of mini games. So, you play something really good. You're probably only going to play it once or twice in like a party setting, and that's it. And I think that's fine. Like, I think as a thing that you can get like 10 hours of like really like solid, rhythm game fun out of it. And if you really want to go deeper and unlock everything, like there's actually like a fair amount that you can unlock in it. I think that's great if that's what you're looking for. What I'll say about it is like, I wish I wasn't cursed with knowledge sometimes because like there have been so many games that have been inspired by Rhythm Heaven that I think have taken the idea of it in like the 11 years it was gone and done like really creative and fun and interesting stuff with it that have like remixed it in really clever ways. And when you play a game like this where like it's so disconnected from like the games that are in conversation with it, you're kind of like, man, I wish Nintendo wasn't so like insular as a studio sometimes. Like I wish they were like, oh, we played Melatonin, like this great indie game that was inspired by it, and like, wow, this game was doing something really cool. Like let's be in conversation with it and kind of do something, like that it was doing and kind of, riff on that in our own way. I think another really good example of that is like Rhythm Doctor, really good rhythm game that came out that like takes the idea of Rhythm Heaven, but puts it in this like wild, like narrative driven game where you're like always pressing the button on the 7th beat and they're doing these really complex rhythms. And there was like, I think an opportunity for Nintendo or the people making this to like kind of look at that and be like, hey, we were inspired by this game that was inspired by us. So if I hadn't played any of those games, I think I'd be like, cool, another Rhythm Heaven game. This is awesome. But I do feel a little bit like I came out of it kind of saying, okay, this is good, but like, I don't think it's the best Rhythm Heaven game anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's way more interesting stuff happening with the series at an indie level now. And I think Nintendo, if they're going to keep the series relevant, I kind of want to see a little more creativity out of it. And that's really tough with a series that is so simple and elegant. And so like, yeah, they're just fun rhythm mini games and you do them. How complicated can it be? And I'm, not complaining, really fun, really, really goofy game. Great. Some great mini games in there. A couple that are just kind of like, I've done this before a bunch of times and, it's kind of interchangeable with old ones. But yeah, I just kind of left it being like, that was good. But I hope Nintendo kind of like pays attention to what indie developers are doing a little bit sometimes, and I think about it all the time with like, they're sitting on the Earthbound IP, right? They're sitting on this IP that like, they're not going to do anything with. And like, there's a world in which Nintendo could be like, hi, Toby Fox, creator of Deltarune, like come work with us on this, right? And like help us move this forward. And like we're really inspired by like what you have done with this game that we created. Like why don't you why don't you like help us out and create something there? And I like almost would want to see Nintendo like tap some of these really cool indie talents to like help kind of figure out like how do we do Rhythm Heaven a little bit different, right?
Well, it's like how I mentioned like Platonic developing a Donkey Kong Country game would be amazing because that's made up of all the people who made Donkey Kong Country back in the day.
Totally, yeah, you know. So this isn't like a knock against it, you know. I think it's perfectly good, and I think if you just want a Rhythm Heaven game, it is like a really robust one that you will get a lot of time out of. I think it just left me a little bit like I think I would like to see a little more like a little more of a feeling that Nintendo is like interacting with the space, and it's not just like a lot of developers that idolize Nintendo having a one-way conversation with them sometimes, right? Because I think that's how you end up with like a good Rhythm Heaven game, right? That like doesn't feel like it's going to push the genre forward so much as be like, here's the biggest thing, right? If you like these games, here's the most complete package of it. Cool, great, awesome. Yeah, so complicated feelings, but I mean like it's Rhythm Heaven. It's fun. If you like that game, it's fun. Cool. I still think that studio's better game this year is as I said last week, Pico Nico. What is the name of it? Picto Nico for the
Pico Nico. I think, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm second guessing myself.
Picto Nico? Pictonico.
Wait a second.
It must be Pictonico. I've never heard it said out loud.
Picto Nico, but it could be Patonico.
It could be Pictonico.
I don't like that though.
Yeah, I don't. Pictonico. That's very Italian, and I do kind of like that. But yeah, super fun.
Really, Colantonio? You like that?
Pictonico. My name's Giovanni Pictonico. Yeah, if you already know if you're gonna like this game already, and that's like when the review is that, it's like cool, okay, great. You know.
So, like, how's the music in it though? Like, from what I played in the hands-on, it was super catchy.
Really catchy stuff. Yeah, I mean, like that's the best part of it, right? I think ultimately this series is kind of like a CD player, right? It's like it's a visualizer, right? You're sitting there, you get to listen to some like fun tunes, and there's some like really memorable, goofy songs in there. Some different genres that are represented. There's a couple of like just like total J-pop, like bubblegum pop songs in there that are just like, oh, this is hilarious, or this is like such a jam. And there are a couple of like animated backdrops that go with that are like laugh out loud funny. I mean, and it's not too many of them. I think it's like not quite as funny as the Wii one, which like the first time I saw it was just like, this is so, like every game in here is making me crack up. But there's like a couple in here that are hysterical. There's a whole mini game. I don't want to like give away too many of them, but there's a whole mini game that's like you're a bunch of like high-fiving robots, and you're like, you know, it's like, okay, you have to high five with other robots on the beat, and there's different like rhythms to the beat. And, you know, you do the tutorial and it's like, okay, you're just a bunch of robots standing in a line. And then the mini game starts and the camera zooms into a TV, and it's just like a reel of stock photos of like construction workers, of really buff construction workers, just like building something, and it just superimposes the row of robots like into every photo high-fiving. So like that's where the game is really good, because it's like not only do I have to stay on rhythm, I have to do it while I'm laughing, and that's like the actual challenge. And like I think a lot of the games kind of lack that. A lot of the games are just like, yeah, and like the background's not really funny. You know, like it, you know, it's just kind of like you're catching fruits in a kitchen. You've done this in Mario Party at this point. But I think when those things come together, when it's like a really good song that's catchy, when it's something that's really funny, and you're trying to like focus on this like very precise task while those two things are happening, that's where the magic happens. And I think it really only happens in like a couple of mini games in this, but soundtrack is really fun throughout, so at least has that going for it. It's reliable. That's like the word that I would use. It's just like reliable in a lot of areas.
Now, we don't want to spoil too many, as you had indicated, but is there one game that sticks out as like your favorite?
One that I really love, other than the construction worker one, and this one is similar in what it is. There's one where the setup of it is they're like, we're a rock band and we are playing a song that is about the letter A, and you're like, what does that mean? And they're like, we'll explain it. And there are like a bunch of different beats you have to work, and basically it's like it'll spell out a bunch of words that end in A, and you have to like hit the button on the A when it comes on screen. So it's like T will come up, and it's like T-E-A, right? And then it's like soda, and it's like S-O-D-A, and each one has its own rhythm. So you have to like hit all of these different words that end in A on the right rhythm. But again, while you're doing it, there's just stock photos of like the things that they're talking about on screen. So just like it'll have soda, and it's just like a stock photo of a woman drinking like a soda and smiling. And like that stuff is really fun and goofy because you're like, this premise is so funny, this execution is so funny. The minigame is clever, right? Like having to remember all these rhythms between different words, like, oh, this is 5 letters, I have to remember it works like this, versus when it's 3 letters. That one is a blast. And then just as I think like a multiplayer one that I would call out as well, other than the ones I've already mentioned, there's a really good one that's like you're a bunch of like ninjas who are like dodging
I love that
arrows.
one.
Yeah, that one's really good. There's a bunch of ninjas who are like dodging arrows. I think we talked about it last week. Yeah. And the
you're
way that escalates,
like the convoy.
Yes, you're like a convoy that you're protecting, and it's like, you're getting shot with arrows, and like that one escalates really well through the 3 stages of it and gets really tricky. So yeah, there's a lot to love in it. I mean, there's something like there's over 100 mini games in it. 30 of those are multiplayer variations. But yeah, I think there's clever stuff. And then I will also shout out, there is a drum lesson mini game where it teaches you. It has you playing a drum set using like the different controls. So it's like this button's a hi-hat and this button's a bass drum and this button's whatever. And it has you like complete a beat, like play a beat that they give you. And like each lesson gives you another thing. So it's like, now you have to learn how to do a hi-hat with the snare and bass. Now you have to do toms. Now you have to do like double bass rhythms. And it's so hard. Like, it puts you in some like real, like, oh, this is like high level drumming beats that like, you have to really master these like button combinations. And that minigame is like a pretty wild, fun side mode. So
let me plug my Rock Band Pro drum kit into the Switch and play that. Like, that's what I want.
Oh, that would be the best way to play it. 100%.
Yeah, let me do that. I know it's for Xbox, but who cares? Yeah. Like, just it's USB, universal serial bus.
Exactly. Now we're talking. Good game. If you like Rhythm Heaven, you'll like Rhythm Heaven group. That's it. If you don't like it, you're not going to like it. It's not going to move the needle one way or the other.
I have very marginally dipped my toe into the final release of this, but very excited to keep playing because I am a longtime rhythm game fan. Like, Guitar Hero and Rock Band I played competitively at Guitar Hero. So like I am all in on the genre. The certain things are hit or miss, but what I played at the hands-on preview and the very limited time that I've had playing the retail build of Rhythm Heaven Groove, I've really enjoyed. So appreciate you sharing your review. You want to check out Gio's review, go over to polygon.com. You can read his full thoughts right there and then. Gio, I have played the Splatoon franchise since before the first game even came out because I reviewed the original game for Game Informer.
Oh, wow.
And then have proceeded to handle the review of each subsequent entry to this point. We have a new Splatoon game on the horizon, but it is a little bit different than these other entries. And the thing that I will say is that I have stated this since the inception of the Splatoon franchise is that, like, while people have absolutely gravitated toward the multiplayer, and that is absolutely where like all of the post-launch efforts and the replayability and longevity of the series exists, the single player content is completely underrated in the Splatoon franchise.
Agreed.
So I'm glad to hear you agree with me on this.
Yeah, I think, oh my God, like the campaign in 3 is great. The campaign is really, really great. They really cracked how to do like a kind of puzzle platformer shooter with that series in a way that like is surprising. The DLC for 2, Octo Expansion, very underrated. Great
Fantastic.
DLC. And also underrated, Splatoon 3 Side Order, when they released a roguelite mode. Man, that was great. They nailed it. And I will even go to bat for the weird card mini game they put in Splatoon 3, Turf Battle or something like that. It was like genius. Like it was a really genius thing that I like actually really engaged with and like played a ton of in that game as well. Like I loved that like weird deck builder variation of it. They are really good at they're really good at making like everything, and it's very strange. Like the fact that they can be like, we're going to do PvE mode, and we're going to do a bunch of like competitive multiplayer modes, and we're going to do a campaign, and we're going to do a card game, and we're going to do like a roguelite, and that like any format they do, they have nailed. Like there really hasn't been a dud Splatoon format like in singular multiplayer for me. I don't know like what magic they have, but like wow, like unsung heroes of this space, man.
Yeah, I mean, I will go to bat for the entire suite of Splatoons 1, 2, and 3. The only thing I will say that they faltered on was the initial implementation of Salmon Run, where it was like, you have to sign on at this exact window.
Agreed.
And you can't bring your friends with you. It was like such a weird way, but I feel like they've rectified that with Splatoon 3. And
definitely,
they definitely figured out the way to make it so that they could have it on for whenever people wanted to jump on for the most part. I think there are still some gaps, but it's like very minimal. So before we jump into your hands-on impressions of Splatoon Raiders, which is the next game in this franchise, I wanted to quickly recap a Nintendo Direct that we got this week for Splatoon Raiders. So I'm not going to go over every fine detail because they love to go into the weeds with these single game directs, which, that's what they're there for. That's why they're not in the larger like Nintendo Direct of like, we have 4 minutes to tell you everything we need to tell you. No, this was like 18 minutes long, but we're not going to cover everything. But so the game takes place in the Spiralite Islands, and you play as a treasure hunting inkling, and you are basically, you're the pilot and mechanic, and you're on this trip with Deep Cut, which was the musical trio and that they were also the hosts of Splatoon 3. And you're brought along for the expedition, and your helicopter goes down, and you all need to basically survive and make the most of your time on these islands. And each island has its own biomes and terrain, and each island is also infested with salmonids, who are the main enemies in the salmon run modes. And you're going to fight the minions, you're going to fight the bosses, and just all kinds of salmonid battles. And I would say that like outside of maybe like the big like set piece boss moments in the campaigns of the Splatoon franchise, the salmonids are the most creative enemies that we've had in all of the Splatoon franchise. So we also learned there's more than 100 weapons that you can find and use, all of which are upgradable, all of which have levels. So you have to like choose like what weapon you want to go in with. You can also get these weapons by defeating salmonids, and they'll drop them. Or you can go back to your hut and swap out from your stash. You can also equip 2 gadgets to your loadout, which really lets you customize it. And there's also 3 different upgradable tanks, speed, power, and tactical. And the gadgets need to match which tank you have selected. So they showed like there's a speed tank that allows you to use like the blast boot, where you like jump forward and slam down with an area of effect attack, or you can use like a projectile boomerang. There's the power tank that lets you use things like lunging slashes that can like break shields. And then there's the splatolites, which I love that name. They orbit around you almost like a Vampire Survivors power up. And then there's the tactical tank that lets you deploy turrets and place bombs that you can then shoot to detonate whenever you want. And the gadgets all operate on a cooldown. You can customize using different resources that you get within the world. And then the resources can also be used to upgrade your hideouts with new nodes that grant like gameplay bonuses. And it really seems like it's very exploration and customization heavy, but some of the challenges also funnel you towards dungeons and linear facilities that require you to bring certain weapons or gadgets. So like, it's also like, hey, you might be playing this one loadout, but for this one, you have to try and experiment with this other loadout. And then it's also worth noting that even if you fail in these expeditions, you keep all of your experience points, which then you can use to level up your character. And if it's still too tough after all your upgrades, you can change the difficulty and it will still give you the same amount of loot. So that's, all very player friendly, very like newcomer friendly. And it's designed as a single player title, but they also said that you can do co-op for up to 4 players, either local wireless or online play. And then there's a call for help button, which feels like it's almost like a Dark Souls-esque mechanic where you can put out a beacon that invites a random player to your session to help with a tough section. And if you yourself are the person who gets a beacon and you answer the call for help and you are successful in helping your this random person, you get like exclusive in-game rewards. So Gio, this is where I'm going to throw to you.
Yes.
You went hands-on with Splatoon Raiders, I believe, a week or 2 ago.
Yes.
Tell me all about your session. Am I right to be excited about this game?
Absolutely. And I mean, like, you would be right to be excited about it from the beginning because, again, like, they have not missed with Splatoon, right? So I think there was like not a world in which this was going to be like, they really screwed up here. What surprised me about it though is that like it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Because when I looked at the trailers for it initially, I think no one quite knew what it was. There was like a period where people were like, when it first got revealed, where they were like, "Is it a survival game?" You like, like, is this a crafting survival game? And then I think people were like, is this an extraction shooter? And then I think people kind of settled on, oh, it's Salmon Run. It's the PvE Salmon Run mode, but like pushed out into its own thing. It's none of those, like, at all. And that was really surprising to learn. It is like a level-based campaign. It is like you have short bite-sized levels that you go into and clear and you get stuff in. It is not like go into an endless dungeon. I think like there are certain levels you go into where you do like go through a couple of like layers of a dungeon, kind of thing, like arena things. But if there's a sort of like endless mode or something that resembles like a procedurally generated like challenge thing, we weren't shown it in the preview. I hope that there's like something like that just like as a replayability thing, but I think it's supposed to be a little bit more of like a focused mostly single player campaign that can be played co-op. And I think once I understood what it was, and kind of put this idea of what it was out of my head, really enjoy what I think they're going for here, which I think the best way I can describe it is like, it's almost like Nintendo experimenting with doing Borderlands in a weird way, because like,
which is perfect because they canceled Borderlands 4 for Switch 2.
Exactly. We have it at home, but in this case, the thing at home is better. It's like it's a looter shooter. Like, it's genuine, and it like, once that clicked for me, it made a lot of sense because you are going into missions, you are getting these weapon drops that like have different higher levels and have like exclusive perks on them sometimes. You are doing character building where it's like you said, you're like, oh, I'm gonna take this character class and equip the splatlights and equip this thing, and then you have like a finisher, kind of like an ultimate on each character, so it feels like a class-based like hero shooter in some way, or like the way that Borderlands would function in that way, right? And it feels like it's very much about creating builds, and like you can tinker with all of your side abilities and be like, okay, the splatlights, I'm going to modify this with perks that like make the radius bigger. It makes them stick around longer, things like that. So there's a level of like, building a character that feels really busted. And once I got into the flow of that, there's a lot of potential there. And even if this is only going to be like a pretty compact multiplayer game or single player game where it's like, like 8-hour, 10-hour campaign, whatever. I think there is hopefully like a little bit of a build and a momentum to that'll make it pretty fun to go through. Played all the classes, like all 3 of the main classes, played with most of the gadgets, tried all of the different finishers. There's one that's like a shark that like you hit the ultimate and like zooms forward and like eats everything in its path. That one's super fun. And yeah, it was just delightful because this again is like the mechanics of Splatoon are great. The whole like shooting and inking, if you like how Salmon Run plays, it kind of has that feel, right, of like a bunch of salmonids. There's these big ones that are a little bit more of a problem that you want to like deal with first. Couple of like wild boss fights during our session. The last thing we played was like one big boss fight, that was like a true like Splatoon boss fight, right, that you would find in Splatoon 3 in the campaign. And yeah, got to try out a little bit of the co-op as well. We were only doing early levels, so they were pretty like short. Again, that's why I kind of hope there's some like longer, substantial, like late game dungeons that are in there, that maybe kind of like go a little bit deeper and you have to dig into. But so far, everything that I played, like, again, that looter shooter feeling placed into Splatoon really clicked and really worked. And I think it's just going to come down to like, how does it escalate through the campaign? How crazy can these builds get? And if they can, keep that momentum going and make something that like lets you feel crazy and overpowered by the end of that game, like, I think that'll be really, really satisfying. I am really looking forward to just like figuring out my main and getting in a crew with 4 friends and just like, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was very disappointed that I couldn't make it to this hands-on preview event that you went to.
Yeah.
I was able to make it to the Star Fox and Rhythm Heaven one, but this one I just couldn't swing, and there was a lot of other travel that had recently happened. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna stay back for this one. But yeah, everything you're saying is ticking a lot of boxes in my head. Like, obviously, like we're seeing it right now with Halo Campaign Evolved, which funnily enough comes out like within a week of this game. But like, it's like this is a traditionally like multiplayer series.
Yep.
But we're putting out an entry without competitive multiplayer. But like every time I asked the Halo Campaign Evolved devs, I'm like, well, why didn't you do multiplayer? They're like, well, we do have co-op, and we're doing 4-player co-op for the first time ever in Halo 1. And I'm like, yeah, that is cool. But like, people are going to want multiplayer from Halo. Do you think people are going to miss multiplayer in Splatoon Raiders?
No, I don't think so, because like, Splatoon 3 is still going, right? And like mechanically, this is so similar that it's not like, oh, this like feels like visually and technologically like such a leap over Splatoon 3, and like mechanically such a leap over it. What I do think though that'll be really interesting is I wouldn't be surprised if like this ends up being the proving ground for like how can we mess with the multiplayer formula a little bit.
Good use of Splatoon terminology, by the way. Proving ground.
Yeah, proving ground. Yeah. I know my stuff. That was an accident, but I'll take it. I think that my guess is that this is going to end up being a game where like you see mechanics of it go into Splatoon 4. Right? Because the first 3 Splatoon games on the multiplayer side have been like identical, right? Different weapons, they add a mode or two here or there, right? But like the core game has kind of been the same for 3 games. 1 and 2 were like literally the same, and 3 was like, we have splat dualies, and you're like, okay, that's something. And I wouldn't be surprised that like if the reaction to this game is like super positive, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some of that like, hey, we're going to let you do like character building a little bit more, right? We're going to let you like customize the gadgets and like, give you a little more utility in what you're doing there, just to take it beyond like, yeah, you have your weapon and you have your one side thing and that's it. I wouldn't be surprised if you see like the response to this lead to like a little bit more of like a hero shooter Splatoon multiplayer game at some point. And it's so safe to do that here, where it's just like, do you like this? Are players responding to this? And then you can kind of like tease out some of that in Splatoon 4. Whereas if this was like the single player campaign for Splatoon 4 and they were like, and all these mechanics are in there and it has completely wreaked havoc on the meta and nobody likes any of this, that would be a bummer. That would put a dent in the series. So I don't think people will miss it, because they can still play Splatoon 3, and best case scenario is that like this is sort of like a focus group test of like, so what did you guys like about this, by the way? Just curious. What were the parts of this you guys liked? I hope it builds into the next Splatoon game.
Well, I'm like beside myself with excitement to play this, because I just love the single player content in Splatoon, and Splatoon Raiders being a game focused entirely on that type of content just sounds incredible. And the fact that you can play co-op with it is just like an added bonus for me. I anticipate playing this as a single player game like 90% of the time at least. But it's just about here. It's coming out on Switch 2 on July 23rd. I mean, not like you're at any shortage of other games to play, but mark the 23rd on your calendar. It sounds like it's going to be a good one.
What a summer for Nintendo. Like Switch has been going big and weird this summer, and like great time to do it when everything else, it's dark, but it's so, we were talking about this before. It's so funny to be like, like PlayStation doing these horrible things that everyone hates, Xbox doing these horrible things that everyone hates, Nintendo, hey, we made Rhythm Heaven. Like the embargo for Rhythm Heaven reviews dropped at the same time that PlayStation dropped the physical games news, and it's such a funny contrast of like, well, we made a game where silly little guys jump through hoops. Like it's such a weird dynamic right now, man. But I'm having fun, and that's what I want from games sometimes, and sometimes we don't get to feel that way because everything is horrible, and it's always a bummer. But
it is interesting to have this feeling of like doom and gloom at the industry, but then you look at like September and October's release calendars and you're like, oh my God, there's too many video games.
It's like, it's one of those things where like, maybe this is like the whole thesis of this whole thing, right? Of like, talking about the games we're really excited about here that are really promising next to this like horrible news is like, I think it's always tricky to talk about like the industry and the art form of games, right? And I think there's always these debates about like, how do we weigh those things, right? And how do we talk about like both those things in the same way? And I think it's like, hopefully how we're doing it here, which is like, you got to give space to like really give it to these companies and like be vocal when they make these decisions that are just like horrible and you hate. But I feel like at the end of the day, like if we're not enjoying the games that they're putting out, like it's like hardly worth the effort, right? To be mad about this stuff when it's like, well, who cares, like what are we mad about? We don't even like these games. So I think when you play stuff like this, like Splatoon Raiders, like Rhythm Heaven, that like are really joyful and fun and remind you why you like playing games, that's like why it's worth getting upset about this stuff sometimes, right? And like getting heated and being like, man, like why are we doing this? Because otherwise it's like, why are we raising the blood pressure over this stuff? So hopefully that's the takeaway here, is like, be passionate about games, be vocal about the industry, but like let it come from a place of passion and like actually caring about this stuff. And there's a lot of stuff to care about right now. So that's my like positive spin on this as best as I can.
Absolutely. And I co-sign that entirely. Like, this is an industry that we all love. It's an industry and a hobby that we have been with our entire lives. Yeah. And for Gio and I, it is an industry that provides our livelihood. So obviously we want it to be successful. And that's why it's so frustrating when these moves are made that, in our view, hinder its chances at success. But we are done with that topic. We're done talking about Rhythm Heaven. We're done talking about Splatoon Raiders. We're going to take our final break of this episode. And when we get back, Gio and I will be playing a little bit of a rapid fire game talking about Nintendo's DLC strategy. We will be right back. We are back for the final time this episode, and to wrap up this show, I want to talk a little bit about something that has been on my mind lately, and that is Nintendo's approach to downloadable content. So I have been just ruminating on the seemingly like random approach that Nintendo has been taking with its DLC approach. And Gio, I'm going to throw out some game names, and you are going to tell me a rating from 1 to 10 how much it did or did not need downloadable content.
Okay, I like this a lot.
So 10 being it absolutely should have gotten DLC, 1 being like, well, it just doesn't make sense to have DLC for that. So that is the scale. Some of these did get DLC, some got minimal DLC, some of them got DLC that like nobody asked for or wanted, but like, some famously got no DLC. Okay. So I just want to get your thoughts on these 11 games. We don't need to dwell too much on any one game, but I'd love to hear a little bit of your reasoning as well. Okay. So we'll throw it off, starting off with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, that one's a 10, right? Like, that made so much sense to add new fighters to that game, a bunch of customizable customization things. Ooh, right? The Mii fighter costumes, I think, were in there. I don't remember if they added stages. I think they did with new characters.
Yeah, they did.
They got stages. That is a prime example of a Nintendo game that should get DLC, and I think they actually knocked it out of the park with that. Really smart idea. And yeah, I was happy with the support for that one.
Yeah, and ending with Sora. What a fantastic
so
closure.
Funny. When I saw that trailer, man, the first time I was like, did I die? Like, what's happening right now?
But yeah, I started with this for a reason, because it's the easiest 10 that you could possibly give on this list.
That's the bar.
It is, 100%. Yeah. So that brings us to another one that I have often harped on, and that is Super Mario Odyssey.
Wow, Super Mario Odyssey. So... And we're rating like how much it needed DLC versus how much didn't need DLC.
Let's say how much should it have gotten DLC? 1 to 10.
maybe this will be controversial. I don't know, because I'm so curious to hear what you think. I don't necessarily think that Mario Odyssey needed DLC. I think nice to have. Like when that game got DLC, it was like a nice surprise. But that game is so complete and so robust, and like you can really spend 60 hours playing that thing. And like what, I would start that game over again and play it again. Like that thing is fun. That's like a 4 for me. Like I think that game is because like again, like it's just nice to have additional DLC, but like I think that base game is so strong for what it is that like you could have not given me anything, and great. No 3D Mario game has ever needed DLC up until that point, and it's like one of the best ones. But they did fun things with it, and I think proved that like you could add more stuff to this game. But it sounds like you wanted more.
I am not going to put it at a 10. Very clearly, like Smash Ultimate is the quintessential 10. Yeah. I'm going to go 7 on this. And not saying it needed it in the sense that like the game was bad or incomplete or anything like that.
Of course.
It's my favorite 3D Mario game. It's my favorite 3D platforming game. Like I love Super Mario Odyssey so much.
Yeah.
But the structure of that game lent itself to expansion so perfectly. Like just being like, hey, let's just add another like icon on that little map at the bottom where you select what kingdom you're going to. You could have added 5 or 6 more kingdoms in there, and they're self-contained. So it's not like a worry of like, all right, how does this going to interact with the other kingdoms? There were so many ways they could have implemented new stuff. They could have added nostalgic areas. Like after, you look at the Mushroom Kingdom area of that game. Yeah. You could have added like Isle Delfino. You could have added Rosalina's like space station area. Like there's so many ways they could have gone about that, both new and nostalgic stuff. That's why I think it should have gotten DLC, but it wasn't a necessity, and that's where I'm landing with a 7.
Well, we got the balloon hunting DLC instead.
I know that like speedrunners and like really, really like tactical, like skilled Mario players love that. Yeah. I did not really engage with that hardly at all.
No, not for us, and that's okay.
But I've seen some incredible like stuff happen with the Luigi balloon hunt. Let's go to one that just got announced to have DLC, and that is Pokemon Pokopia.
Yeah, I think this is actually a pretty high one for me. Like this is one I'd probably put at an 8. Again, I think this is a really robust game that has like a ton going for it already. Like you could spend hundreds of hours in that game anyways, but any Pokemon game that doesn't have the full roster, the potential is just there, right? Oh, yeah. To bring more Pokemon in, and especially with like a game where you're building stuff, like you add more stuff that I can build with, like add more toys to the toy box, like blocks to the toy box. And also like because of the structure of that game, you can add an entirely new area to it. And I will say the thing they did with that DLC that's coming out, they're doing an underwater DLC. I had posted when that game came out, I said, this game's great, but the problem with a lot of these new Pokemon games is that like, and all these Pokemon games where all the Pokemon are walking around in the world, is I'm like, they can't do fish Pokemon. I like posted this specifically. I was like, they can't do fish because they can't just like flop around on the land except Magikarp because they'd be dead. Goldeen would die if you did that, and you don't want Goldeen to die. She's cute. And I was like, they got to make a fish Pokemon game for all the like water sickos. Lo and behold, they listened to me. So like. Thank you so much. I put it at an 8, and I think they're doing the right thing with that DLC because it's the thing I said they should do.
I would put this at an 8 as well. I think that you're right. There's so many ways they can expand this, add more Pokemon, add more toys in the toy box, as you put it. Fantastic candidate for DLC, and I'm glad that we're getting it. That brings us to the next one, which we've not gotten any real DLC for this yet. We've gotten some title updates. Mario Kart World.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, this is another 10. Like if you were to ask me like what are the 2 Nintendo series that like could benefit the most from DLC, it's these. In the past, I don't think Mario Kart games needed updates necessarily, but Mario Kart 8 kind of proved that if you can like do a long-tailed game that lasts through the whole generation, brings in new tracks, like absolutely. Mario Kart World is difficult though, right? Because everything is placed on an open world map. So it's like, if you add new tracks, are they just separate? Do you have to add an entirely new map? Does that complicate things? I think they probably could add just like individual tracks at this point and be like, yeah, just some one-offs. add some old courses and whatever. But even like adding characters, right? Adding new bikes or vehicles and whatnot, adding more like stickers to collect, things like that.
More activities in the world, because that's the biggest problem with that game is there's just the open world is so like empty.
Totally put more stuff in there. Like there is so much that you can do with this game specifically and the structure of that game. And I think it's totally open for it. And, you know, they just announced a really smart update to it today, actually, or last night, I think, where like, hey, we're adding 2 new routes in the knockout tour mode, like 2 new ways that you can go around that world. And that's like another smart way to solve that problem, right? And I think they are also adding like 2 multiplayer maybe modes variations in there. I can't remember if that's I don't think that's right. I think I'm making that up. I don't remember, but they could. I don't know. There's a lot they could update there. I think they have like served what that game could be, but I assume that like something big is happening at some point for it. I just have to imagine.
I think it's got to be a world expansion. Like that is like the way they've got to go about it. And that's why it's taking so long. Like the game's been out for over a year now, and it's wild to me that we've not gotten any like meaningful DLC aside from like, yep, we're going to change these rules back to what you want, because like everybody was upset about like not having more like 3-lap races and stuff like that. Now having the new routes and knockout tour is great, but like I feel like we need another like world expansion that like goes off onto one side, or maybe it just adds like a big like loop of land mass around the outside of the world, and then there's like multiple tracks you can add there. Yeah, there is definitely a hurdle with it being open world, but I don't think it's insurmountable.
No,
and I'm sure they thought of it while they were designing the world, because they're like, yeah, you know, we made such a big deal out of DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that like it would be weird if we didn't do any DLC for this game, seeing as how like it seems perfectly positioned for it. So I'm sure they have some sort of plan in place. It feels weird we haven't gotten anything, because this is a 10 for me as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Metroid Prime 4 Beyond.
0. Like I think actually maybe a 0. Like maybe I'll put it at like a 1, just for like if you want to throw in like amiibo. Like I don't know what you would throw in. Maybe. There's never been DLC for a Metroid game as far as I know, and it doesn't need it. It's like a story driven adventure game that like is perfectly robust for what it is, and I don't know what you even would add to it. I think this is like very low on the priority list for me. Like you got what you wanted out of it. What can you do? I don't know.
Yeah, this is like a 1, maybe a 2 for me. Like I could see a world where they add like, hey, we're gonna do a horde mode or something like that, like just like a waves of enemy type of expansion. But we don't need more story. I mean, we could go the same route that we did with Mario Kart World, with our discussion with that, where it's like maybe you add more stuff into like that big open area. But like, I don't think that's necessary. And I don't think that would drive anybody to go back and play Metroid Prime 4 a second time, because you got like more enemies or more activities or more collectibles in the big open area. I think that it would have to be just an entirely separate mode that does cool stuff with the mechanics, whether that is like a horde mode, whether that's like, hey, we're going to do like a bunch of like Portal style puzzles, or like, I don't know, first person exploration, but it really would feel like, let's just move on and make something new. I'm going with a 1 as well, actually, on that one. All right. Super Mario Maker 2.
Ooh, so I'm going to put this at like, I think I'll put this at like a 7. I think this, first of all, this is a game that should get a Switch 2 edition. Like no question. It is wild that it wasn't the first game to get a Switch 2 edition. Give this mouse control support. 100%. Bring it to the platform and just add like just like a couple more items to it, or like another like theme, right? Add Mario Wonder theme to it or something like that, right? Where you can like transpose your levels to that. I think like it is really well positioned for it. It also did get this goes so forgotten. It got a fantastic DLC where they were like, hey, you can make like a suite of levels now. You can make a world.
Make your own world.
Yeah. And like when they announced that, I was like, dude, what are you guys doing? That's like your whole selling point for 3. Like you could have saved this and built the entire third one around this and people would have bought it. So I think like There's a lot of potential for DLC in that. I think it needs a Switch 2 edition, even if just to get the mouse control support on it. That said, if it didn't get those things, uh, I think mouse control support is like really the only thing that I like need with it. And if it never got anything else, like it's a really good creative toolkit. It has a lot of stuff in it. It has like even a single player kind of mode in it that's like oh cool, like that's a nice extra. So it definitely doesn't need it. It's not like a Mario Kart situation, but like there is a lot of potential for a Switch 2 upgrade, and I hope that in the next year we see that as like one of the next Switch 2 editions for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That is one that I would love. And there were rumors that they were going to do the Mario 2 style.
Yeah.
Mario USA for people outside of America, but it's weird that we never got that. And then they gave that mushroom or whatever that you could get that like would turn you into the Mario 2 sprite with like that all those abilities. And that was fine, but like, yeah, I think that the easy way to do it would be like a Mario Wonder theme, because like you could still maintain all the move sets and everything. It doesn't have to have like wonder effects, but if they wanted to make like a Wonder Seed transformation, like that would be very complex. But like at that point, I think you're getting to like, this is a Mario Maker 3. But the problem with what you're saying is I think that Mario Maker 2 didn't sell well enough, and they lost faith in the ability to make a Mario Maker 3. So they were like, well, we had this world idea. Let's just throw it into 2 and call it a day.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that should have been in 2 from the beginning as like the thing that differentiates it. I think the problem with that series is like, yeah, it's the same thing both times. You're just making levels again, and like you're starting fresh, and there's no server, none of the pre-existing levels are there. So all the stuff you put work into is not there. So I think it's like really just boost up to try to make it the best game it can be, and like hope that a Switch 2 edition makes people want another one. But I don't know. But sometimes you don't need a sequel. Sometimes you need like a really good complete edition.
I adore Mario Maker, and I hope it's not the end we see of it. But what's your number?
7. I think I'll put that at a 7. At like a lot of really good potential. Should get mouse support, definitely. If it doesn't get the Switch 2 edition, I'll be like, that's a bummer, but it's also a pretty complete game. So
I was also going 7.
Yeah.
So we both landed on 7 for that. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
This might be controversial, but like, I don't think that game needs DLC at all. I think it can have DLC. I think there's plenty that you can do with Tears of the Kingdom. I think you could add tons of like new building materials,
ultra
like
hand creation stuff. Yeah,
totally. Like new Zonai devices, like all of this stuff. But if I'm being totally honest, like when a game is already like a 200-hour, like go in the world and see whatever, like I don't really like need anything. Like go work on a new Zelda game, man. Like you did your job. You gave me all this stuff. That said, there is, because of the building, I think there is a lot of potential to like at least give you a couple new toys to play with and mess with and build stuff in there. So I'm not going to put it like super, super low. I think like maybe I would put this at like a 5, where it's like, I would take that. I would take like some more building stuff to like really mess with the ultra hand stuff, and especially if like we're gonna move away from this style of like Zelda open world game in some way and change it up a little bit. It would be nice to have like a little bit more of it to go with, so that it doesn't feel like that was it, we just got those 2 games. But I definitely don't need more of that game. If they never updated it again, I would be like, I got my money's worth out of it. I got my time's worth out of it.
I'm going to go with a 4 on this one. And the reason I'm saying that, because prior to Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, I think there was a cool story to tell where like, you could go and do like a extra post-game content, and in the process see more insight into like the rise of Ganondorf and, what Zelda was up to back then. But now we've gotten so much of that with Age of Imprisonment that originally I think I probably would have said 6, but now I'm down to 4. But still, it would be very cool to like have a thing where it's like, oh, you find like an anomaly in like the time rift or something, and it sends you as Link back to that old version of Hyrule, where like, it's not all in ruin, and it's like kind of just like lush forest, but there's still some enemies around, and like you have to maybe take on like a a battle or to lead a battle against Ganondorf or something. I don't know. Like, there's stuff they could have done with that story, especially with the time travel aspect, that would have been really cool. But it's not necessary by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
so I'm 0-4. The next one, Star Fox.
That is really interesting. I am actually going to. This is such like a weird one. I think I might put this at an 8, but for a very specific reason. I think like there's nothing you can do to the single player, right? Like there's nothing you can do to that campaign, like
except leaderboards, right, Gio?
Yes, leaderboards, man. I'm throwing the leaderboards. I know that people are like, no, you can see the high score in the menu or whatever, but it's like, no, throw in the actual leaderboard. I need that. I don't think there's anything to do with that. Like I don't need more banners to unlock, you know, I don't need more challenges to do on those levels. Like the arcade game is the arcade game. Give me the leaderboards, give me online leaderboards so I can like compare against my friends, whatever. The reason I would put it at an 8 is because that battle mode, the multiplayer, is so good in theory, but it is so sparse, right? It's just those 3 maps. That's it. Like, update that. Give that like a bunch more to do. Give me like more levels. Let me play the different objectives on the different maps, which you can't do, right? It's like 1 objective per map. Give me like some levels based off of more of the stages that are in the game. Like, you could really turn that game into like, hey, you got the single player, now it's a multiplayer game, right? This is like a multiplayer game that's like not a service necessarily, right? But like we're really going to add more to it. You know, maybe you could do like some light like events, you know, servicey events that happen, and then like, oh, play it this time, whatever. I thought that battle mode was such a missed opportunity, like so deeply disappointingly a missed opportunity, that like that is enough to have me be like, please update the heck out of that mode and just like give me some new levels over time to give me a reason to go back to it, because I love it and I want an excuse to play it, and there's just not enough reason right now. So I think I'm going to put it at an 8, which is like wild to think, but I think it is up there for me.
I am going to say a 6, but for all the same reasons you mentioned. Like, I think that taking that, like, even if it was like we are adding 5 more maps based on the Star Fox 64 maps that we remade, like, give me one where you're in Aquas and you're all in blue marines floating around like underwater, or you know, give me a landmaster level in battle mode, or do an ultimate throwback to Star Fox 64 and give everybody like the on-foot rocket launcher mode that you can do. Like, that would be super cool. That's 3 levels right there. Not that that makes it any easier to create, but like that's 3 levels that you could ideate on. And then like, just give me like this is like the Star Fox versus Star Wolf death match, like that. Yeah. Because that's what the original Star Fox 64, that's 4 of the 5 ones that I'm pitching that they add right there. Like, we could do all kinds of cool stuff with it.
Yeah, I agree. That puts it at an 8 for me, because I just think that without that battle mode is just like a proof of concept and nothing else, and it's too good to just be left at that.
I mean, honestly, I think that entire game is a proof of concept, because I think Velen is going to get the next mainline Star Fox game, and this is going to be how they establish themselves.
Agreed. I think the next one will be a lot better.
So, and also, you know, they were a multiplayer first studio for a long time there with Knockout City, which rules. And I'm so sad that game died.
Yeah.
But they also did Mario Kart Home Circuit. Yeah. I reviewed that back in the day.
I've never had an apartment that was big enough to play that game, but maybe one day.
New York, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. You forgot this game existed.
Yeah, I mean, you could technically add stuff to it, I guess. Is it worth the effort to do it? I don't know. 3? Like, the thing is, you could add plenty to that game. You could add more challenges. You could add more NES games that it supports to the mini games. Realistically, is anyone gonna log back? Is anyone itching to log back into that game to like, let me play like Clue Clue Land? Okay, no, I would be the one who would be excited about Clue Clue Land, so that's a bad example, but like pinball or something, right? Like maybe I'd be excited about that too. I don't know. I just think that game was not the core of that game was not like strong enough that I needed that. It was like a gimmick. You know, you just kind of wanted to play the NES games that are in it already. I don't know that adding more niche games that they haven't covered yet would really do anything. I wouldn't say no to like, hey, you know, we added again Clue Clue Land, great game. Wouldn't say no to it, but I don't think you need it, and you can't make a second one if you use all the games. You know, like if they're gonna make a new one, who knows?
What's your number?
I think I said 3, and I think I'll stick by it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 2.
Yeah.
And the only reason it's not a 1 is because I could see a world where they'd be like, okay, yeah, let's add another like a couple of NES games with a bunch of challenges surrounding them, and it makes sense that would be an easy way to plug it in. But you're right, nobody is really playing this game. It was a cool idea when it came out. What I would rather them do is an NES Remix 3.
Yeah,
those games ruled, or or SNES Remix.
Yeah, I agree
I'd be
with
more
that.
into that.
Yeah, I think Nintendo has this like sub series of like, how do we get people to play our old games again in a new way? And I think NES Remix was a much more interesting approach at that. So I agree. I would take like Super Nintendo Remix over stuffing this game with more stuff.
SNES Remix would be like one of my most anticipated games, not even joking. Like, absolutely. I love that idea. NES Remix is such a cool idea, and I'm so sad they never brought it forward. Like, it's like the NES Remix and Yoshi's Woolly World, like the 2 Wii U games. I'm still like begging for them to port over to Switch. 100%. It hasn't happened.
No.
We only have 2 games left here, Gio.
Okay.
One of them has gotten a ton of DLC. One of them has only gotten a little bit of DLC to this point. First one, Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Oh my God. Should have been like a 12. It should have been like a 500. I mean, like this Animal Crossing, with how popular it was, especially in 2020, and how much it like captivated people, that should have been operated like a live service game that is still being updated right now. Like, just seize on that. And just like have that be your like forever game for 10 years. There's a world in which they could have done that. And you know, there's a lot of precedent for updating Animal Crossing games. I think the DLC that the 3DS one got was fantastic. The Welcome Amiibo update on that one, like really good stuff in there. And I actually think the updates they did for New Horizons, when they did do the big updates, were great. I really liked all the stuff they added to that game. Even the Switch 2 edition, I think had some strong stuff in there. But even with all the support that it did get, it felt like it was not enough to capitalize on like what should have been like Nintendo's forever game, you know, like until the next one. So like 11, you know, like truly an 11 out of 10 for me, if I could say it. But you know, then they couldn't sell another one. So I guess that's the calculus.
It feels like that's what they're up to right now, and that's why we haven't gotten more and more of those. And whatever the next Animal Crossing game is going to be massive. Probably not New Horizons massive, just because that was such a moment in time with like the pandemic just kicking up, and everybody was desperate need of human connection. So this thing was like the perfect way to have a wholesome experience while interacting with friends and other people.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 10 for me, but I understand why they haven't done more.
Yeah, I think we'll see a new game, but I think also like people need a little distance from it, because I think people still are like, oh, that was the game I played during the worst years of my life. You know, and like, I think we need to get people to like a point where they're nostalgic about it, and I don't know that we're there right now.
No. All right, that brings us to the final game, Gio, and that is Donkey Kong Bonanza.
I have 2 answers for this.
Okay.
If you had asked me this when the game came out, I think I might have said like, I might have said like a 7 or an 8, right? I might have been like, wow, you could keep adding levels to this and like keep letting me go in and like smash things and like just let me have fun and get more stuff. I do think it's similar to Mario Odyssey, where I'm like, there's already so much in it that you don't need it. So like part of me is like, well, maybe I should rate it the same way. But like, I feel like it could have used a little more, just like new ways to play with that mechanic. Cause I do think that it like got a little more shallow than Mario Odyssey for me at times. I think there were more ways to play with it, and maybe like more Bonanza forums or something like that like changed the way you interact with that world in a way that I think Mario didn't need. So like I think maybe a 7 I would have said for this at some point and been like, yeah, like I welcome it. Let's bring more stuff. Post roguelite mode update that came a month after the game came out, like a 2. Like I don't think actually I think they put that out, and that was the one time where I was like, oh, never mind. Like I don't actually need more of this game at all. Actually, we're good. I didn't really think that mode was very good. I don't think it was terrible by any means, but I don't think that it was like necessary. And I think I was like, oh, I actually don't need other ways to interact with this game. I got my fill of it, and like this system that they have built for smashing stuff, like maybe isn't deep enough to do much more with in this game. So let's bridge the gap between these two numbers and put it at a 4 where Mario Odyssey is, and be like, if you have a good idea that's not the roguelite mode, I'm all ears, but I don't know that it is proven that idea can stretch in the way that a Splatoon can stretch.
Yeah. So for me, this is probably going to be a 5 or 6. I'll go with 6. And okay. The reason for that is the best part of Donkey Kong Bonanza is its destruction and exploration. Like those two things go hand in hand, and it's easier to expand a segmented area like we talked about with Mario Odyssey. It's easier to expand that than it would be something that's another exploration based game like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom.
Yes.
Like unless you teleport somebody to a completely different area, like it's hard to say like, yeah, let's add more exploration to Tears of the Kingdom. So the thing that I could see them doing with Donkey Kong Bonanza would be just adding another area to go explore, another layer to go destroy and, punch everything you can, and that would be fun. It's not necessary. I'm gonna go 5 actually. That's gonna be my final answer.
And I think if you start to like ask yourself like, well, do you want that at the expense of another 3D Mario game, because that's what that team like should be doing next, I think you start to be like, actually, yeah, I don't actually want that. I think in that range, like if they can do something like that, cool, but it's so unnecessary. There's so much in that game already.
Well, that wraps up that game that I just pieced together right before we started recording.
I like it.
Gio, and also, if anybody has any other games that they think needed or did not need DLC, leave that in the comments, either on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this, if it has comments in that. And if it doesn't have comments on that, just shoot me a message, Brian at allthingsnintendo.com, or on the Patreon or Discord server if you are in there, because I love this topic. I love the speculation of like what DLC should come for games or what people want from games post-launch. That type of stuff is really fascinating to me. So share your thoughts. And in the meantime, Gio, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of All Things Nintendo.
It is always a pleasure to drop by, and I am proud to have done a two-peat with you the last 2 weeks.
I believe it's just called a repeat.
Yeah, I guess so. I like two-peat though. It makes it sound like it's a sports achievement. Like
or
it's like going back to back in the Super Bowl.
Or just a modernized take on the adventures of Pete and Pete, a two-peat. But anyway, yeah, I'll show myself out. And in the process, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. As you know, the Patreon and the associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in. But you can also get in touch with me, Brian at allthingsnintendo.com, or hit me up on Blue Sky or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. Gio, tell everyone where they can find you online.
You can find me on Blue Sky at Mario Prime. You can find my writing about video games at Polygon.com, and you can find me starring in The Adventures of Pete and Pete on Nickelodeon.
That is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We will see you next time. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode of All Things Nintendo all the way to the end. before we get out of here, I just want to give a special thank you to the $10 patrons of this podcast. Alex Stadnik, Ben Richlin, Big Mitch, Chad Brekke, ChapsMyAss, Damian Petino, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jawar Hello, Johnny 5, Jose Villalobos, Joshua DeProy, KC Radio Man, Kenny Shaw, Cody Gibson, Creeper 207, MPI Creates, Nathaniel Edison, Ozman83, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sosa, Roberto Nieves, Roger Reichart, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, Zane Sink, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. Thank you all again so much. Thanks to you as well as everybody else who supports me on the Patreon page. Again, extremely important that people support me on the Patreon. It's the only reason I'm able to keep doing this week after week, but especially for these $10 patrons. Thank you so much. So, taking a hard right turn, I have had charcuterie for lunch for 3 days in a row now. And I've got to say, the Lunchables people were onto something.
Really? Oh, wait, hang on. Why?
So
why are you doing this to yourself?
About a week and a half ago, we had a house party, and we vastly overestimated, or rather, Costco's portions vastly overestimate how much charcuterie people will consume at a typical house party.
Yeah, it's always less than you think.
So I am trying desperately to not let all these meats and cheeses go to waste.
I feel that. My dad, he makes gabagool.
Gabagool.
And he's made a gabagool, so I always have like gabagool in my fridge, and like every once in a while I'll just like cut it up and serve it to people, and they like won't eat it, and then I just like have that as a snack for the week. I've never had it as a. That's not true. I have had it as a meal once, so I get it. One time I definitely, like, when I was trying to save money, and maybe it was during the pandemic, and I didn't want to go outside, just like took a hunk of it and was just like, I'm gonna just eat this like a sausage, and it was heinous. So I get it. I mean,
it's nice because it's a variety of cheeses, it's a variety of meats, and I just throw them on little Ritz crackers. One of the world's greatest treats.
Anytime I do the flight from New York to LA, like, it's not long enough where they give you a meal.
What?
Because it's like, it's like 5 hours, and they only do that if it's like 6, or something. So I always buy just like the cheese box.
Yeah.
And like every time I do that, I just will do that. And I'm like, that's a meal. That's cheese and crackers is a meal. So I get it. I do get it. That's crazy that you've been doing it for 3 days straight. That's psycho shit, but
we don't want to waste them.
No, you're right. But I would like eat it as a snack. Like a meal is crazy.
But then it's snacks, and then it's like, on top of your meal, you're also eating an abundance of meat, cheese, and crackers.
Yeah, that's legit. That's very legit. Cool though. I like that for you. I mean, I really like that for you.
I mean,
man.
It's also
cool.
The other problem is we also had an abundance of leftover peanut M&Ms, which is my snack that I just am picking at after I finish my charcuterie lunch.
Okay, that makes sense. Now I want peanut M&Ms. Damn.
Peanut M&Ms, definitely the top M&M.
Oh, 100%. Though I just had lemon meringue M&Ms.
What?
That's a new thing. Yeah, dude. There's lemon meringue M&Ms now. They're going crazy with these.
I've seen like coffee M&Ms. I saw like what was the one that I just saw where it was like, that's insane. Like there's just been like all these ones. Peanut butter M&Ms are second place for me.
Peanut butter M&M's good. Yeah. I definitely, for me, it's like peanut number 1.
Yes, 100%.
I like an old school M&M, but I had one that was like something like weird, like raspberry brownie or something weird the other day, and was like, okay, I guess so. It was like weird.
M&M minis, vastly underrated. You just take the little tiny tube and you chug it like a shot.
Oh,
do a shot of the tiny little M&Ms. Like the ratio is different because from like the hard shell and the chocolate. Like
I think swallow those like a crow.
Yeah, you take it like an Advil.
Hell yeah, brother. Now we're talking.